Welcome. I'm your host, Malcolm Gallagher, from our BizVision studios in the UK. You are watching the BVTV Leadership Matters channel. Now, regular viewers and listeners will know that for all our BVT channels, my team and myself are zooming all over the world, talking to business and thought leaders. But what has bubbled constantly to the surface is what we may call new leadership challenges. Now, these have resulted from what has happened in our altered world, changes that are not temporary, but instead the new way. Now, these leadership changes are varied, but include remote leadership, conscious leadership, visible, that's virtual leadership, and so on. I thought it would be helpful to my viewers and listeners if I started to bring you some solid thinking on these challenges. And so I'm taking you back to meet a solid leadership coach. Welcome again, Alex Kuhn. Welcome, Alex.
Malcolm, I am so glad to be here for a second time, and I'm really honored to be on BizVision and speaking to your incredible audience.
Well, as soon as we finished the last one, I was writing a note to Kim, my guest director, said, got to have Alex back, got to have Alex back. I'm delighted that you're kindly returning to BBTV and guesting here on the BBTV Leadership Matters show. Viewers, in this BBTV talk show, I'll be chatting to Alex in three parts. First part, I'll talk to him about what changes and challenges he thinks have happened in leadership that leaders need to address in this altered world. In part two, we'll move to talking about what a successful leader will look like and act like in this new altered world. And in part three, we'll talk about the effective way to improve your leadership and your team skills for 2021 and beyond. But Alex, before we get into our three-part talk, can you please briefly introduce yourself to my viewers and listeners? Who is Alex? What's Born to Lead? And what's your leadership philosophy at the moment?
I love all of those questions, and I will keep my introduction short. But the one thing I will tell everybody is, as obviously the founder and quote unquote Alex Kuhn, I have an incredible team through our programs such as Born to Lead and the Vault, where we work with paradigm shifting leaders all over the world to make sure they build businesses that align with who they are, resonate with the people they want to work with, and ultimately act from a place of intuitive trust. That is the work I love doing. It's the work I love sharing all over the world with many, many clients and many, many people in many, many facets. I'm so excited to talk about here today. But one of the core things I am challenging people is that what we saw because of coronavirus, because of some of the challenges, is that leadership got lazy. Leadership got stuck in that because we have buildings and structures and accountabilities and managers, that everyone thought that certain organizations were leading well. In fact, we would write books about these leaders. But what happened is because of the world became decentralized, they understood that there was no leadership. There was a lack of leadership. And in fact, the organizations that continued to thrive proved that they had leadership models that went beyond the idea of we have this accountability system, we have this manager, we have these protocols, because that's not true leadership. That is not paradigm defining leadership. And what you're going to see over the next decade for everybody that's building a business, for everybody that has a home, at the end of the day, leadership is not about accountability. It's not about structures. It's not about systems. It's about people truly buying into the vision that you're building and wanting to work towards that regardless of the world's circumstances.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah. I really like that. So let's start our conversation. Let's talk about what changes and challenges you think may have happened in leadership that leaders need to address in this altered world. Now, I mentioned in my intro piece about remote leadership, conscious leadership, and visible leadership, for instance. What's your thinking around this?
I am a big believer that there's these levels of leadership that we go through. And what I really believe the biggest challenge and biggest problem we saw, especially in the business world, and obviously that's where my forte is, but I think you saw this in other areas, is that people were not understanding what really leadership was. The definition of leadership was people doing as they say, people being successful, people, basically going from point A to point B. And so when we saw an organization or we saw a unit or we saw a sports team being successful, we said, that's a great leader. So we got to model those behaviors. We got to model that system, that place it. But what you're discovering here is because systems break down, life happens, the world went into chaos, right? All the things that quote unquote we admire about leadership are really managerial techniques. They're ways to hold people accountable. And that's really not the idea of leadership and what the definition of leadership to me. So the definition I want everybody that's listening here is to understand that all leadership is you using your skills and talents, innate abilities to impact lives.
Mm.
And if you start to look at that, what you'll discover is that truly leadership is a place of role modeling what you want people to do. And that is what I believe. Yes, it's an old school thinking, but I believe it's the one thought that's being lost. For as much as we talk about technology and AI and all the different areas of growth, we've got to make sure as leaders that we get back to modeling what we want people to act like, whether it's within our organization, within our company, or even with our clients. That is the only path to really turn leadership upside down and really start shifting the world again.
Yeah. So are you saying then, as the leader, you set the culture for the business and the vision for everybody else to follow?
Yes, culture to me is the invisible link that deeply connects people to work as one. And culture is sometimes this buzzword you hear in the sports world. And yet, people in the business world, and this is coming from an athletic background, but
Mm.
people in the business world think culture is talking about mission statements and core values and having these statements all over the business
Yeah.
office or on the website, and it makes you feel so good. Yeah, we've got a mission statement, we've got our why, we've got whatever they said. But really, a lot of these cultures are just words. They're not
Mm.
integrated into the day-to-day lives from a pure unconscious level for the managers, for the leaders, for the CEOs, all the way down to the lowest level on the organizational chart. We've got to start understanding that culture really is establishing a clear vision, a tangible vision that people want to say yes or no to. A culture is establishing who is in this tribe, who are the people of this organization, who are the people that we're supporting, who are the people that we're serving. And then finally having a philosophy and not taking this vanilla stance of we're just going to play the middle game. No, taking a philosophical stance that we believe this is the best path to lead our company. And we believe this is where we're going to spend our time, energy, and resources supporting our clients and supporting our teams. Most companies, most organizations, most leaders don't even take the time to not only get clear on that, but to truly instill it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Do you think that's because the old traditional ways, we expect you to do that because we've been so kind and given you a job?
I believe it's because people don't like what's sad is sometimes we understand that money moves the market, money speaks loudest. And so what I think happened is that people saw this idea of culture and this idea of leadership. And I don't think they understood how that actually moves businesses. I don't think they actually understood the invisible way that actually moves companies to move forward. Yes, there's books about it. Yes, there's all these different philosophies and different thinkings. But I think what you saw start people do is like, we got to get into the technology game. We got to start implementing new technologies. We got to be able to be faster. We got to be quicker. We got to make sure that we basically automate all the processes and all the systems within these organizations. And yet what happened is that when you're basically talking about everything else but the people in the organization, you lose that organization's soul. You lose what made it unique. You lost what actually was your competitive advantage. And so when all of a sudden everything becomes decentralized, what happens then is, what are you? What is your organization all about? What is it? And when technology is ubiquitous between the smallest of solo entrepreneurs to Fortune 500 companies, what's the difference? So everybody that's listening on here, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest player or the smallest player. Listen, at the end of the day, there's a lot of competitive advantages that have been wiped away. That really, at the end of the day, if you start to work on your leadership and work on your culture and become very clear and use your messaging to share that with your audience, whether it's your internal team, your external team, you will grow faster than any other way that I've seen that people are not doing.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Alex. Now, Alex, before we move to part two, I'd like to remind viewers and listeners of your website URL, which is all the W's, Alex, ALEX, hyphen KUHN, Kuhn, alex-kuhn.com. I'll spell that out again for our listeners. Viewers, obviously, you can see it on the screen behind me, so you can write it down. But for listeners, all the W's, alex-kuhn, Kuhn.com, alexkuhn.com. Alex, it's time for part two. We'll move to talking about what a successful leader will look like and act like in this new altered world. I think many leaders have had an awakening of their people leadership ability, for instance. What's your thoughts again?
I believe that if you're not seeing it or feeling it, then you're going to be very lost over the next couple of years. I think because of, especially in the United States, and we had some incredible challenges. And I think what we saw was not just because of coronavirus, but because of the Black Lives Matter movement, that people from all different walks of life, different genders, different races, different backgrounds, different financial situations are feeling lost. They're not feeling heard. They're not feeling appreciated. And that at the end of the day, any organization that's more focused on the monetary dollar is going to become lost. It's about the social dollar that is becoming way more valuable than any other currency that we have on this planet. Understanding, and I say this, being a white male, understanding from purely whether I recognize it or not, that there are some inherent advantages I have, and to make sure I use my platform and my voice, whether it's within my organization, with the clients I work with, to understand that not all of us are starting at the same point, that we need to treat each person as a person, that organizations need to get back to making their organizations people first organizations, not the stock market focus, not revenue focus. And those are the organizations and those are the leaders that if they can actually make that shift and truly believe it, not just say it, but believe it and integrate it, those are the organizations and those are the leaders that are going to be successful.
I love that concept of the social dollar. We call it the social pound over here, obviously,
Yeah.
and it's part of our conscious leadership program. But I still think that so many traditional leaders are going to have a problem of transitioning into this new altered world because, they've been a top-down approach in the past, a little bit like Moses, send the tablets down and tell everybody to get on with it,
I think it's going to be a major challenge for a lot of people. For those that are continued to stuck in their own, there was actually a post I read not that long ago, and the post basically said that values are like pizza. Yes, you can have a very strong value, but even like pizza, if you keep eating it and eating it and eating it, you're going to get sick of it. And there's going to be a point where it's going to literally be like you don't appreciate it, and you're going to see the problems with it. And I think that's one of the things that people that literally are stuck on such a specific value that they're not willing to let go are not really understanding what our point as being leaders are. And that is to really take an honest look at ourselves and really take an honest look at our integrity and really take a courageous act and saying, maybe I can be better. This is the idea of role modeling the way, understanding and coming out and saying, I'm not perfect. There are situations within my organization that I am not doing a good enough job. Not saying it from a PR perspective, not saying it from a marketing perspective, but truly taking actions upon it. There are so many leaders, and here's the truth, right? 90% of those leaders that came out because of the Black Lives Matter movement, because of all these different situations, may have said the right things, but what are they doing today? What are they going to do a year from now? What are they going to do 2 years from now? The organizations that talked about coronavirus and being there for their employees, what are they doing 6 months later? What are they doing a year later? It's not the words, but it's the actions that honestly will compound over time. And those leaders that take these situations and challenges seriously and put actions in place and put protocols in place and really talk about that within the culture, those are the organizations that are going to thrive.
Yes, I totally agree on that one. It's hard, though, isn't it, for a traditional leader to spot where he or she may need to change? How do you help them?
Well, first and foremost, everyone loves to say, like, leaders, like you got to want to work with somebody that wants to change. And there is some truth to that. But I also think that at the end of the day, most of us, we are, just from a biological perspective, we are homeostasis people, meaning that we want to basically find a comfort level and we want to stick to it. It's like all of us finding our favorite TV show that we want to watch on Thursday night. If we want to go there, when our day done, we're going to watch that TV, we want to go to bed. So it's hard being a leader. And for everybody is on here that's saying, I'm a leader, I see myself as a leader, let's also be mindful that there is a major responsibility to understand it is not easy. And so if you're actually taking on this mantle of being a leader, whether you're an entrepreneurial leader, whether you're a CEO of a large corporation, if you are actually saying to yourself, I'm a leader, and you're just resting on your title or resting on the fact that you're in top of the organization, then you're not understanding what leadership is. Leadership is hard. Leadership is daily asking yourself the tough, honest questions. Leadership is about really saying, are we doing things that we actually say and not just saying it? Leadership is about taking courageous steps that may actually, quote unquote, lose you the revenue dollar, but will impact greatly the social dollar that you truly believe in, that you truly buy in. So yes, at the end of the day, everybody I believe is a born leader. I believe everybody has that innate quality. But to really be that leader, you've got to be looking at those three traits of yourself: your honesty, integrity, and courage, and really asking yourself, am I doing that on a day-to-day basis? Because if you're not, you're never going to be the leader that the next generation needs.
I think courage has been well tested during this pandemic, hasn't it? And it will continue to be so for a good number of years, and then something else will happen. So courage is a superb. Integrity, without a doubt. I think the world has had enough of people who are devious and deceitful, and that honesty with yourself as well is something I think as well as obvious honesty with your people. Yeah.
Yeah, Malcolm, about 2 years ago, I said, you know what? I want to lose weight. I want to get back to my athletic self. And one of the things I did was I got up every day and looked in the mirror without my shirt on. Now, for somebody looking at myself, and I didn't like how I looked. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't like the feeling I saw. I thought myself this athlete, as this person who was really fit, and I wasn't. So did it just all of a sudden happen that day that I wasn't? No, it happened for years because I wasn't willing to be honest with myself. I was willing to eat that junk food. I was willing to eat those chips. I was willing to drink that soda and still in my mind say to myself, oh, I'm still an athlete. Oh, I could still do this. When the truth is that I was not. And so for all of us as leaders on there, yes, it's not easy. And in fact, honesty is this practice of looking at yourself day-to-day basis and saying, am I really putting in the efforts, the time, the energy, and the resources to really enact what I want this vision to look like? And most leaders, most people tend to, let's be honest, shy away from that. Now, being an optimist, I actually believe this next generation is going to be the best ever for leaders. I believe it's going to be the best ever for people, whether you're clients, whether it's your family. I believe that this is actually, most people think that sounds dire. I couldn't disagree more. I believe this next generation of leaders, because understanding these concepts, understanding that we need to get back to people first, those are the people that are honestly going to be lead. Those are going to be people that we want to follow. Those are going to be the people that are going to, their message is going to rise to the top. I truly believe that because I believe noise is becoming even more drowned and not appreciated more. It's time for those paradigm shifting leaders. It's time for those honest leaders. It's time for those people with integrity to step up. That's what I'm here on this planet to do, is make sure those people and their voices are heard.
Excellent. Yes. And I totally agree with you. I think technical skills will, the swing or the seesaw will happen. The technical skills will down, the social skills will come up. So, all those people thought, well, I can never be the CEO because I don't have an accountancy qualification. Your time is coming. Thanks, Alex. And now for part 3. Let's talk about the effective way to improve your leadership and your team skills for 2021 and beyond. I know you're a successful leadership coach. What have you developed to help meet the new leadership demands? Where do you see the priority?
So the first thing I always talk to every single leader is that for us to actually lead best, we have to be able to operate at our best. Just like an athlete, you can have all the will and desire to be the best athlete you possibly can be, but if your body is unwilling and able to do the movements or able to do the specific skills, then you can't, it doesn't matter how much will. And so as much as I talk about 3 traits, honesty, integrity, and courage, as really the backbone of the skills you want to build as a leader, I also want to make sure every leader understands that their role, first and foremost, is to find alignment with themselves and how they best operate. Just because, it's easy for me to get on a microphone and to motivate and to inspire and use those words because that's my natural innate gift. I call it a motivator. there's 4 types of operational, or I call them success DNAs, that every single leader, they must understand where they are at their best. So it allows them to attract other leaders who can support maybe where they are weak in. And those 4 types are the architect, the developer, the motivator, and the visionary. And just very simply to go into 4 of those, if it's okay, Malcolm, as well, just very quickly explain those 4. The developer simply is the person that is able to really talk the person and help that person get the best out of themselves. They're the person that drives the intrinsic motivation. This is the person that you actually want at the manager level. You want this person in that place where they're speaking to their teams of 4 to 10 and really having those one-on-one conversations. They're going to be able to hold their emotions and be able to basically spit it out like trash and get that person to perform at a higher level. The second is the architect. And this is the person who can turn the big vision, right? The big idea into implementable, incrementable steps, know who needs to be where so that it actually can be completed. Yeah. We all usually underappreciate that skill. We think of this as a project manager. We think of this person, we put them in this like engineering category. It is one of the most underutilized leadership skills in all of business. And it's the one that is the least appreciated. So if you're an architect, if you're a natural architect, I need you to pound the table because you're the person that basically turns things and gets things done. The third is the motivator. And obviously I use myself as an example, but you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be a loud, obnoxious, screaming, Tony Robbins-esque. And I love Tony Robbins. That's not a motivator. A motivator simply is somebody who can communicate so people buy into it, whether it's into a product, into a vision. They're the person who gets people to say yes. They're so good from an empathetic perspective that they can hear people and they can concoct up ways of saying something that people agree with. They are very good at that. And yes, it's also a skill that can be very harmful if used inappropriately. I recognize that, which is why I only work with leaders of integrity. And then finally, the fourth, which is usually considered the holy grail, but again, all of them to me are equal in terms of their value, but visionary. And a visionary very simply just means is that they're able to anticipate the future opportunities and know what they need to work on today to take advantage of them tomorrow. So often we think of visionaries as the big CEO or that individual. I will tell you that some of the most famous CEOs we think of, very few of them are natural visionaries based on my research and study. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which one you are. You don't want to try to just be a visionary if you're a motivator. What you want to do is you want to be whatever your success DNA type is and really hone that skill, master that skill, and ultimately attract other leaders with different success DNAs to fill up the organization.
And for listeners who are busy trying to write that down, just go through the four types again, please.
Of course. Yes. So I will also, maybe my shameless plug of the day. I'll be writing the book. It's called Success DNA. It'll be coming out at the end of 2021. And obviously for everybody that's listening to this, please go to alex-kuhn.com. We'll be getting you free books and all those wonderful resources as we go along with it. But one of the things, again, very simply, developer, you have the ability to get the best out of people. Architect, you have the ability to turn massive visions into implementable, incrementable steps that get the job done. Motivator, you get people to buy into your vision and say yes. And then finally, the visionary is the one who can anticipate the opportunities down the road and knows what they need to do today to make it happen.
Brilliant. And Alex, you will come back and chat to us once the book is available, won't you?
Absolutely.
I'll be telling everybody across the world. Leaders are awakening to necessary change in themselves, not just their business or their teams. For many, it's a challenge. For others, they are keen to adapt and adopt. I trust, like me, you both enjoyed and been given cause for thought with my return visit to leadership coach, Alex Kuhn. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Malcolm.